generations. And now, the power of two restores the one.
We got a bidet! Hey everybody, welcome back for another video on the Acolyte. We are here for the season finale discussion. And, we were all hoping to see if we get some answers, tie up some loose ends. And so we're going to talk to you about what happened, give our thoughts along the way. But before we jump into that, what did you guys think of the episode? Sarah, what did you think
I have a question for
after
Austin,
watching it the
actually.
first time?
Yep. What's
So,
up?
Austin, how did you like getting to see Vernestra's lightsaber whip again?
What do you mean? Which part?
It's exactly what she's
You
getting.
didn't, because we never got to see it again.
Yeah. No,
Just for that
if
fun.
I had a nickel for every time they set something up in this show and don't pay it off, I'd have like 2 or 3 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happens so much.
This episode, for me, it felt like what the heck after what the heck after what the heck, just over and over and over across the board with every single character. None of them were consistent to me, at least. You've got the problems with May and Osha changing their mind a million times. You've got Soul saying a lot of really weird things that doesn't really seem plausible, and I'm gonna wait until we actually dive into the episode to get into these things. But you've got Chimere, who's like manipulative and cool most of the time, but then some of the time he's really quiet and just not passionate at all, and just seems like dead inside. And it just doesn't really match how he's trying to manipulate people, because you can't really manipulate them if you're just standing around watching, doing nothing. Vernestra totally backstabs her friend, and so just all over. Same with Basil. Nobody stayed with what they were wanting to do. Nobody was passionate enough to keep on doing whatever they were doing. Nobody cared about whatever they were trying to care about for longer than 5 minutes, because they all changed their mind over and over.
I would argue that Basil was so dedicated that that is why he had to sabotage the ship. Because he was ordered that he had to bring in May alive strictly. So that is why he had to sabotage, because he saw Soul going for the firing switch there. Soul might not have been going for the kill shot. He might have been going to disable the ship, but Basil wasn't taking any chances. That's
give
my
you that.
headcanon. See how I draw circles for them?
I'll give you that one. But then why wasn't Soul upset at Basil for totally demolishing his plan? He didn't say anything to Basil. Nothing.
Yeah, it was he was crashing. Like, what could he do?
How about a Basil? How dare you?
My big issue with that scene is actually that the other ship started tumbling also, because they were like in front of it. Wouldn't they just keep speeding away? You'd think, right? But no, somehow that ship tumbles into the other asteroids, which cause them to lose. I don't know how that works. Space.
What did you think, Jeremy?
So after watching the first time, because we watched it 2 times, after watching it the first time, I thought it was flashy and, somewhat entertaining from an action perspective. But it took the second time to really listen to what they were saying, because I think I was looking for the action. I wasn't looking much for the kumbaya that we got between Osha and May and whatnot. But upon second watch, it was like there's a lot of these things that just make no sense. I know you're talking about some people's dialogues, and one of them that I want to point out before we even just dive in is there's a part where we see Osha and May together. It's like their first confrontation to one another. And May is trying to talk to Osha about saying that Soul put the fire business and the killing of all the people from her home on her. And Osha cuts her off and says, he didn't blame you. And then the next thing that she says is, Soul was trying to basically help me understand and deal with the fact that you did this. That's exactly blaming you for what she did.
Yeah, it was Soul didn't blame you, May. He tried to teach me to accept that someone who loves me could be capable of this level of destruction. What's the destruction if you're not blaming them?
Right. If she had nothing to do with it, I mean, they wouldn't be quote unquote blaming.
Well,
Um,
and then like her next line right after that, because this was one of the things that bothered me too. So I wrote down some notes. But the next thing that she said was that she didn't become a Jedi because she hated May so much and she grieved her mom too much and she couldn't get over both of those feelings. Well, if Soul didn't teach her that May did all this stuff and May was responsible and putting blame on her, why would she hate May?
right. Yeah, if he had just said, something happened, it's hard to understand, but when the time comes, we'll talk about it, and just kind of leave it at that, she probably would have been all right. But yeah, like you said, why would she have so much hate if there wasn't some sort of blame game? That wouldn't make any sense.
Yeah, they keep making the point that she has this like pain, she has all these feelings, this baggage that she can't let go of. And for years and years and years, Soul told her, he just like told her the facts, right? The story they made up. Um, which was that May started the fire, blah blah blah, right?
Well, I think
Um,
it was more like a half truth. May started the fire and everyone died. Both of those
yeah,
are
yeah,
true, but they're not really linked.
right. They always told her and everyone else like the half-truth version rather than if they truly believed that they were doing the right thing, you'd think that they could have just come clean from the very beginning. Maybe Soul would have been punished, maybe he would have been released or kicked out of the order, whatever it may be.
Give a
Some kind of
parking ticket,
punishment.
dude.
Right, right. Maybe the other three as accomplices get some kind of punishment. But yeah, they just decide to sweep it under the rug to try to give OSHA some kind of better life as a Jedi, but then it doesn't work out anyways. But
Right, because they end up finding out that May was alive.
I see what they're going for. I just never felt like connected to it. I never felt that connection between like trainee, like master and Padawan. Like we never got to see a relationship. So like I don't know. I guess
Well,
we'll get
even
to it, but I guess I was kind of just trying to summarize my overall thoughts. Like I'd love to say they nailed the ending, but the ending didn't work for me because I don't feel anything about Ocean and Soul's connection. Like I was just like, okay, whatever. See you later, Soul. We'll miss you, but like you did a really sick spin move. Best moment of the episode, but see you later, partner.
Yeah, I feel like the only thing that people are looking forward to are the like two major spoiler type things that happened in this episode, but even those are kind of stretches. But um, yeah, I guess we should just kind of go over the episode. I know, I don't remember. Oh, it opens up with the ending of episode 6. So when Osha has the helmet on that Chimera usually wears, and she is getting basically some sort of visions, and she reaches out and she's doing this little connection with Chimere, and his eyes go, pure black. And eventually the connection gets dropped. She takes the helmet off. And I did see this upon the second watch too. I thought it was interesting. I'm pretty certain that one, if not two, of Osha's eyes were like a reddish orange yellow color, like the Sith would. But then as she takes the helmet off, it looks like it fades away. Uh, the reason why I feel like it has to be part of the dark side is because there were no lightsabers around. Like, I don't think it would be a reflection of the helmet. So I just thought that was kind of interesting. But basically, she's explaining to Chimere that she basically had a vision and that May was gonna be doing something to Soul, and it was on Brendock,
Not
and
just something, killing him.
right.
And she said she was holding a lightsaber. So I think
Well, the,
that's what she was seeing in her eyes. I don't know. I don't think this show's very subtle with their. I think they just like slap you in the face with stuff. Like I think literally you can see like a red lightsaber in Osha's eyes, like after she takes the helmet off.
So you saw the red too.
I saw the red as well.
well, what's interesting to me with that is that she says she sees May doing this, but
Hmm.
as she's describing it, if you've seen the episode once already, you know she's describing exactly what she herself, meaning Osha, does later. Killing a Jedi without a weapon, but still holding a lightsaber, like, using the Force choke. That's exactly what Osha does at the end. So is
So
Hmm.
she really seeing May do this and she just becomes that because they are one person? Or is she lying and saying that it's May and she knows it's herself the whole time? Like it's weird.
well, my thing is that she's having some sort of vision where she can see May doing this. Wouldn't that vision have some sort of like clothing attached to the character? Like, wouldn't she see it was her own clothing instead of May? Or, I mean, there are stark differences, right? Like May is wearing a white jumpsuit and Osha is wearing like black robes. So I feel like if she looks at what she's wearing, she would recognize that it's herself. But
Well, keep in mind we're talking about after episode like 5, right? Because before episode 5, Osha's in white, so make sure you don't get it mixed up, because that could happen easily.
right, because she stole her sister's clothing.
I'm just throwing some more shade on the writing
Well,
of this show.
to
Um,
that point, right here is where I feel like Osha started acting like May. Like Osha's character is now May's character. And
yeah, they kind of
way later in the episode, that's when I see May's character basically becoming Osha's character, and it's like they have an identity swap.
hmm. And maybe there's something to that because we find out that they're not actually twins. They at one point seem to have been one being.
That was split
Uh,
into two.
yeah, I mean, like I said, we don't really find out any more about that, which is kind of a bummer. Um, because they kind of hyped it up to be this big mystery, and turns out the mystery is actually just about the Jedi doing something bad that got covered up. When
Right.
like I don't know, that's something we don't really.
And even going along the lines of they're the one person split into two, there's some things that just don't seem to add up as far as like with that being said, does that mean that they are both experiencing certain things and that like the twin telepathy thing is really going on, but to another level? Or are they two separate people and they're just kind of being wishy-washy with their dialogue? Because there's something that's pretty significant that happens to May at the tail end of the episode where it's like, well, if they are one person, why isn't it, affecting both of them kind of a thing? But we'll get there.
Yeah.
We'll get there.
Well, the
Hmm.
next thing that happens is that we see some sort of creature in a cave, and I'm gonna let you guys tackle that from a Star Wars nerd type point of view. But as somebody who doesn't know who this one is, and Jeremy told me it's what, Darth Plagueis, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, so I'm gonna let you nerd out on that in just a second, but hear me out. As somebody who doesn't know who that is, this meant nothing to me. I just thought it was some random creature lurking around in the caves. Knowing the name, like if you know, this is somebody who's super powerful and all that stuff. But like to me, it was just some random weirdo. Like it meant nothing. And it just, not everybody is gonna know all of these things about Star Wars. I'm not saying we can't have any like Easter eggs for people who are mega fans, but at the same time, like if you want this to be impactful for everybody, you got to give me something else. Show me that they're powerful. Show me that they're doing some sort of like mind telepathy or something. Show me that they have a lightsaber or anything. Literally anything.
There is some speculation about other events towards the like 75% mark of the episode that has to deal with him a little bit. Um, like specifically the relationship between possibly him and Kymir. But if you're like Sarah and you have no idea what is going on with this character, in Revenge of the Sith, there is a scene where Anakin joins Palpatine at the Opera House, and Palpatine is like, this is the pivotal moment where he is trying to persuade Anakin to be, you know, more enticed with the dark side. He's talking about this character called Darth Plagueis the Wise. It's not a tale that the Jedi would tell you, and it has to do with the one person that knew how to save people from death, which is exactly what Anakin wanted to do for his wife. The only ironic piece is that he couldn't save himself from death because he was murdered in his sleep by his Padawan, which we find out is Palpatine himself. Um, so the big piece here is that this is the first, visual representation on film of Darth Plagueis. But there's more to it as well because so I haven't read the books, I haven't read the legends, but I've heard tons of people talk about this. And Austin, I know you listen to a lot of talks too, so feel free to jump in on some things. Um,
You've you've covered past my surface level knowledge already, so I don't know
okay.
if I have too much more to add, but we'll see.
Um, so in Legends, Plagueis is trying to basically create a being to be his number two, like because the Sith work in twos, the rule of two. And so when he tries to do that, the Force in response to that creates Anakin because he is supposed to be the balance between this potential huge creation of the dark side and the light. And so Plagueis is a his attempts at these things is what is supposed to be what fueled Anakin's birth from the Force. He's what was created from a virgins. And then when we look at the Acolyte, the reason why Sarah, you mentioned that Kymir seems kind of off-putting, toward in certain parts of this episode, uh, because it ties to play. I guess I'm gonna jump ahead a little bit. There is a moment where our four characters are all in this like little courtyard, and uh, Osha and May and Sol are all basically having this conversation while Kymir is just standing there listening. And their soul is explaining that it was like, what in the world? There's this potential vergence here on Brendock. I couldn't have just one and not the other. I couldn't prove it to the council, blah, 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 blah. But what's important here is that when he's explaining that their mother manipulated the Force to create them, the idea that is kind of the talk on social media is that if Kymir is connected to Plagueis, he could be learning what Plagueis is trying to actually find out and be able to do. And so because he's hearing that the Force can be manipulated to create life, he may be taking this back to his master to, tell him this, oh, this is what I heard. This is how it could potentially work, and this might be the inner workings, quote unquote, of pulling from legends and letting Plagueis carry out his plan or attempt it. And I digress on that because that's basically the importance that we need out of it.
Thank you for filling in some of those gaps. It was very much needed.
But
Yeah.
I mean, you got that from the episode, right?
Yeah, all of it. Yep.
When I saw him, I was like, "Oh, this is really cool." Because I thought what was going to happen is we were going to see him watching. They showed him on camera. I thought he was going to like slip away into the cave, and then we were going to see what he's up to, at least like a minute or two of what he's up to, and that would have been cool. Our first look at Plagueis is probably not even 30 seconds in this show. And if this show doesn't get a season two, like what are they just going to ditch the character? Are they going to make a different show to try to explain it? I would be all hands on deck if we got a Tales of the Sith and they explored his backstory, if they end up dumping the Acolyte. But I mean, we also saw what happened with Tales of the Empire, and that might not be exactly what they do with it. All right, what happens next? I've been talking forever.
No, no, no. I was just trying to think if I had anything to add on that. But you covered a lot of it. For me, I if they weren't gonna have him show up again, I wish they just wouldn't have showed him at all.
Right.
Or like show him at the very end of the episode, maybe as like a little teaser. Um,
That
because
reminds me a lot of a comment that I saw on one of the Facebook posts about him.
mhm,
And you remember in Solo when we saw Darth Maul for like all of 10 seconds and then they never made another one, so that was basically for nothing. And here we are
mhm.
again where they may or may not make a season two. We'll see how much money they want to throw away. Um
Yeah, it's not 100% fan service to me, but it's like 98% fan service to me, and like 2% has to do with the show. If Keimer and Plagueis are up to something. But that's the thing, we don't even know if they know each other. Presumably, that's his master, but like we don't know squat. We didn't get to see anything.
Well, what we do know about the Sith is they're always trying to overthrow each other. So,
Right.
I mean, what could have been happening is that, and it's speculation, is that Plagueis saw the two of them getting on that ship, and he's like, "Oh, I see what you're doing here."
Right. Right. Training someone else, I'll show you. I'll teach you a
Meanwhile,
lesson. I'll show up later in the episode. Oh wait, just kidding. I'm gonna go skulk in my cave some more.
Yeah, because at some point here, something's gonna if Chimere is connected to Plagueis, something has to happen within these handful of years because Palpatine ends up being Plagueis's apprentice.
Yeah. And I know in those novels, I think there's like something about this planet that they're on with the cortosis, like they had
Right.
some interest in the planet or something. So maybe that's why they showed him there specifically, but it just seemed like such an odd place in the episode. That's all I had to say. I think that was like the only things I think you didn't cover.
do you think this is plausible? And this thought came to me because I know there's so much hype around the character, and we saw him right after Osha saw these visions with the helmet on where Chimere was trying to help her get the helmet off. Do you think Plagueis was putting those visions in her head?
That's a great question, but what I would say to that is Chimere told us that the helmet is like blocks out the Force. So I don't
He does
Well,
use
he
the
said it's
helmet to later
you.
hide from Venestra.
Yeah, it's weird. He made it seem like it blocks other people from reading your mind with the Force. But it seemed like it almost locks you in with the Force. Like it's just you and the Force. That's all you have to rely on. So, and I almost feel like it not amplifies, but anyone wearing it is relying pretty much solely on the Force. Like I don't think they can really see through the isolates, if it has any.
right.
Yeah, when we saw Osha looking through it, it looked like she could see like the teeniest crack of light, but not enough to actually see anything.
Like the
Right.
thickness of a pencil, if
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So then, yeah, so then Kymer tries to get the helmet off. He gets really close, and then he just kind of stops. Um, that reminded me a lot of I don't know. There's like an X-Men scene. There's a bunch of scenes like this, I think, with like Professor X, where he's like going crazy with the helmet, and everyone else around him is like having a hard time. Um, I don't know, but anyway, Kymer's trying to get the helmet off, right? And
It's
I think
kind of
he,
like my prediction from last week about the mask from Goosebumps.
okay, I don't know that too well, but yep. He's trying to get it off. There's almost like a witch connection, right? Because we kind of see Kymer's eyes go black, like when the witches took over the mind of the Padawan
I was getting that
Right.
too.
way back when. So I don't know if that was supposed to mean something, or if they're just lazy, Like what's going on? Are those
Yeah.
related or what? Because
This looks cool.
OSHA, it does look cool, but like OSHA didn't really train to be a witch. She doesn't really, does she just emanate witch energy when she's locked into the helmet? Like what's going on?
Yeah, 'cause she doesn't have the marking either. She
Hmm.
didn't ascend like May
Just
did.
every scene this episode, I just have more and more questions.
Well, jumping to the next one.
Did you really think about what is happening here, or did you just do it because it looks cool?
Well, it's kind of, an overall theme of this episode is if you don't think about it, it's an okay episode, but once you start to think about any little thing, the whole thing falls apart. But we get Vernestra finding out from her little assistant dude, that they know where Soul is, and this bothered me too. She says to gather as many Jedi Knights as you can without raising alarm. So only using that knowledge, how many would you think? Like three, four? There are
Yeah,
at
a
least
small team.
12. At least 12. I counted them. That's a lot.
Yeah, they got a little squad.
Well, what I thought was so I kind of really liked the senator dude. I liked how snarky he was to her. He just was one of the honestly one of the more interesting characters I thought in the show, and he only had like 2 minutes. Um,
He was
I
way too clued in to like the inner dealings of the Jedi,
right.
but other than that, he was a good character.
Because it makes you think like, okay, this is supposed to be on the down low. Who in the world spoke out about it and then it, trickled to politics? It should have, stayed right within the Jedi.
Hmm.
Well, I'm
There's
gonna
a
guess
leak.
that it was her little assistant because she asked, like, you let him in the control room? And he goes, yeah. Like he doesn't think anything of it. He's so stupid.
Weeb.
He is a dweeb.
Season 2, Mog is gonna be the evil conspirator to
Mm.
take down the Jedi.
Some people had wondered if he was Palpatine. I really hope he's not. Um,
That'd be interesting.
but yeah, we
We're jumping back to Ocean Chimere teaming up together to go find May
Ocean knows where
because
they are.
they can trust each other. They're a team, kind of.
Kymir's like, well, I'm gonna go on my ship. How you gonna get there? She's like, well, I know where they're at. And so they have to go together. Well,
Yeah,
who's gonna get to her first? You idiot. You're both gonna get to her first.
right.
It's
Yeah,
math.
it's just like a silly thing, like
They're flirting. Come on now.
right. They're doing this weird thing with them, especially where it ends up in the end of the episode. But
Yeah.
yep, they take off on the planet. They're on their way to Brendok.
How'd you feel about his controls being shut off on his end of the ship?
So it's kind of
Yeah,
weird because
why does she have control of that?
there
Like, why
is
does she have a
another
parent switch?
there is another ship in Star Wars that is similar to this. Funny enough, there's a couple of references to The Empire Strikes Back, and uh, one of them being when um, I don't want to get him crossed up, when May says to Soul later in the episode, "See you in hell, Jedi." I mean, that's a reference to Han Solo saying, I'll see you in hell and stuff like that. But like this one, it is just like the Cloud City cars, the orange pods in Cloud City. I don't know if you guys remember those, but they're like the security of the city, the cops. Um, but yeah, it's really weird that she could shut down his side of the ship completely. Like, why would he let her be in the driver's seat? Or could he do the same thing to her?
Yeah, that was a weird dynamic. Like I figured it was his ship, if anything. She would be like in the passenger seat, but
Doesn't seem like a very practical ship either if it's like your own ship.
Yeah.
Like, what if he's lonely the whole time? Who's gonna drive in the other seat? Where do you put your
she,
stuff?
because this is OSHA. So OSHA was the mech
Yes.
person technically. So, but she didn't do anything. She just hit one switch. It's not like she like messed around with the circuits and unplugged a certain wire. I don't know.
She
But
hit
you
the
did
child
remind
safety
me,
button.
we skipped over the Soul and um Soul and May. How did they get to where they are? How did they get to Brendock and all that?
Yeah, so May is still strapped to that table. Soul did not effectively make sure that she didn't have anything handy to get herself out of it. He is trying to explain to her some of the stuff that we saw in episode 7. But eventually she breaks out. She does uses her little droid. Is it Pip was the name? At least before she reset it. And the droid gets her out of the handcuffs, pops out of the table, and then she is able
Tases
to.
Soul.
What's that?
She tases Soul.
Yeah. She tases Soul, and which is another time that Soul is tased. And then she goes to get in the escape pod so she can run away. And the stun must not have worked very long, just like some of the other times in this show, as he bounced right back up. And as she's trying to get out, that's when she says that line of "See you in hell, Jedi," and she takes off on her little piece, and then Soul runs to the main part of the quote unquote main ship and detaches from the hyperspace ring and goes after her. And so May, this bothered me in the show. So May went towards Brendock. There is a thin asteroid field, okay? She enters the asteroid field, and I thought to myself, oh my God, please, Soul, for the love of God, don't go in there. Fly right above it and follow her. And then as soon as she gets out on the other side, then take care of business. And he did that at first. So I guess once he saw an opening to jump down in there, he decided, oh, it's best to just go in there, even though, hey, we're almost to the end of this sucker. But yeah, he dives down in and he has his little targeting computer measuring her up. Basil sees it. He's not too fond of it. And like Austin said earlier, Basil pulls the plug, and this sends our people into a little bit of a banging match with their ships, and then uh, May crashes down to the planet.
She's perfectly fine. Perfectly
Always
fine.
Soul.
Everything's fine here. We're all fine
It's
here.
so
How are
funny
you?
seeing the ships crash from space and then the people like get out of them 30 minutes, 30 seconds later.
It's because she put that piloting helmet on. That's why. Jeremy told me so because I said, why would she bother doing that? She's like a prisoner escaping. And he said, it's because of safety. That's what you wear when you get in the ship.
Yes. Wear your seatbelt.
Seatbelts and helmets, people.
Uh,
So, yeah, they make it to Brendock.
yeah, they make it to Brendock, and so does um, Kymir and Osha eventually. I believe it. So Soul heads towards the Coven's home, where they're all burned up in the first place. He has to do his normal way of getting in there, right? Scaling the wall, most likely. Um, what's interesting is that so he's walking through the place, he's listening to the echoes of the past and remembering all these things. He sees the two bridges where um, he really wanted to hold up those bridges, and then he turns around and heads back. And as he's heading back, the camera pans down and we see May crawling from underneath. Why? Because when she was younger and she fell, she knew this other secret route. And so she went through that area to get into the fortress and then climbed a long way to get up to where um, Sol was. And I think this is right about where we also see Kymir and Osha getting to the fortress, and Osha is trying to mess with the front door. Kymir does his little floaty thing, supposedly, where he gets in there. I don't know. I couldn't tell if it was teleportation or if it was him floating, but just because I've seen him float before, I would assume that. Um, but it did kind of seem like a teleportation type deal. But
If he was floating, he would have had to go really fast because he's like, "Are you sure that's the only way in?" And she turns around and he's gone.
hey, he's just like Chris Angel, disappear.
Yeah, who knows? Yeah, we don't really see the floating outside of the one time really. So we don't know if he can just float anywhere he wants or how that works. Hopefully he's not cannot just like fly, but
So, Austin, your interpretation here. When we saw the flashbacks and things were exploding in the fortress,
hmm
would you say that their power source exploded?
I'd have to go back and look, but I feel like they definitely there's like a shot where they show like a generator or something, and I don't know, it's just weird that the whole place goes up, right?
Right, because OSHA can rewire the door and it powers on. And then also later in the episode, some like green lights turn on in one of the tunnels.
Well, they know May like closed up the doors like when the Jedi were invading the first time.
Well, I
Right.
think what Jimmy's trying to say is not why was it stuck, but how does it have power?
Hmm. Yeah, I guess that's a good question. Like everything should be burned up, you're saying?
Yeah, burned up, broken.
I
It's
Yeah,
feel like I feel like more of the building should have been crumbled if the fire was
plot
really as big as they
convenience.
portrayed.
even
Plot
the
convenience. We
house has plot armor.
saving budget. We want to use the same scenes over, like the same set over again.
Right.
Well, it's the only way they're going to have enough budget to buy all these Facebook commenters. I don't know if you've seen it, but there are so many, and they all say the same thing. It's always, wow, this is the best show ever. I'm so glad I'm not a narrow-minded Star Wars fan, and I can actually enjoy the greatest Star Wars we've had that Disney's been putting out. Yeah,
Yeah, there's
it's the
some
same
shills,
thing
some people
over and
that are
over.
really all about it. Um, and I don't want to, if people like it, if they love it, great. Um, Me personally, I have a little bit higher standards for my storytelling, but and
I'm
not
I'm not
not to
saying
say
that
that.
you're a bad
Well,
person or anything if you do like it. So don't twist my words there, internet. I just mean I think it's pretty obvious that some of them are paid like bots or something.
yeah, there's some people that are a little overly positive, like trying to get on Disney's good side, get like some early access
Yeah.
or interviews or something. Like there's some people trying to work an angle for sure.
Yeah. Well, at this point in the episode is when some of that action starts to heat up, right? Because eventually Soul runs into Kymir in the halls, and so we get a pretty crazy hallway lightsaber battle, which was I thought it was pretty neat. I do think it was. Uh, I hate to keep saying that it's like all these other things we've seen in Star Wars because it was still cool, but I mean it was just like the hallway scene from Revenge of the Sith when Anakin and Obi-Wan were duking it out. cutting up all the walls and stuff. And so I thought that was kind of a cool callback. But one thing that kind of bothered me a little bit, and I think it bothered Sarah a bit more too on our second watch, is eventually Soul and Chimere get out to like this platform or this bridge. And when they're fighting and their lightsabers clash and they're hitting the walls, the camera is specifically following those sabers and paying attention to the destruction that they're doing when they're cutting into the walls. I had thought, well, if you're going to focus on that so much, is it going to fall apart? Is the bridge going to collapse? But that went nowhere. So it was really weird to see, like, why am I paying so much attention to these cuts when there's no reason for it? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was it w- yeah, it was just effects, right? It was just to make the lightsaber fight look cooler. That's all it was for. It wasn't for any plot reasons or anything like that. Um I didn't think they overly focused on it. I just thought they were trying to do interesting camera work for the fight to make it look cool. Which I thought they did for the most part. I mean, there's a couple parts where it's a little like whatever for me. Like, for example, in the hallway, Keimer does like a little spin kick move while Soul's kind of like recovering from a blow, I guess. Like he blocks, and then in the time that it takes for him to raise his saber up again, he's like getting kicked in like the arm, like the side. I don't know. I don't want to pick apart the fight, but so it's a little weird, but I think overall it looks pretty cool. The
What a
wire work later in the
yes,
second part, how was that for you guys? I was
awful.
not super about it.
I don't mind that they jumped from the bridge down to the ground. I don't mind that one bit. But
Well, okay, slowing their fall though, like when they come to the ground.
It
yeah, like
reminded me a lot of Kill Bill.
the physics didn't make any sense.
Yeah, they went very like kung fu wire work for this scene, and I don't, it kind of took me out of it, if I'm being honest.
So I don't watch a lot of kung fu type movies. When we in a kung fu movie with that kind of action, does the clothing look like it's not kind of going with the motion either? Is it still kind of straight? Because that was my thing with it. Like they jumped down and their clothing looked like they were just
Standing
floating.
still.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, I wasn't paying super close attention to it in that regard.
watch it again.
Yeah, I'm usually watching like greater, the greater picture, I guess. For example, just to bring up a different show, Kenobi, when little Leia is falling, right? The forced catch isn't just like I'm gonna snatch her out of the air. She just like she's falling and then she just stops right there. It's kind of like you gotta like catch her and slow her fall for a second. You gotta like cradle it,
Hmm.
essentially. And that's kind of the motion that I look for on that kind of thing. Like with the knife, when May throws the knife in the first episode at the bartender, and Indara catches it in the air, it's kind of like it's not holding still, it's kind of like moving a little bit, you know? Um it's like an energy field. It's not like they have I don't know. It is magic powers, but they're not like repelling the ground, you know what I'm saying, to like slow their fall.
Yeah, it's not like Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah, Jedi are always like they're very acrobatic, so they just kind of like control their fall when they do that kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, they duke it out for a little bit longer. We do get that really cool sequence where Chimere like splits his lightsaber in two, chucks them at Soul, and then runs at him so he can punch him right in the face. And then Soul puts his lightsaber away and does like this wicked force push. I thought that was pretty dope.
It was probably one of my favorite scenes in the whole thing.
Yeah, it was like the one thing where I was like, it's cool and it makes sense.
hmm
I'm down with
Yeah,
that.
yeah. It was a little like that scenes that sequence, there's a lot of like igniting and uh opposite of igniting lightsabers.
I had trouble trying to find that word too. I thought of
Um,
retracting.
yeah, so retracting, that's probably what it is. There's a lot of that going on, which I think makes it like it looks cool only so many times, right? Like how many times do you need to like
Do a
get your
pose.
saber going in a fight and do a pose, you know? Like so I guess that's what I'm saying. Like the fights, I don't know that they kept the tempo up of the fights. Like they kind of dragged down a bit at certain points or like had weird pauses. That's all I could say about those. But it was fun. The spin move was really awesome. Definitely like highlight of the whole show for me.
Ooh, the whole show. Nice.
Maybe it's up there. I'm just struggling to think of anything else I liked that much, which is sad to say, but they
I
just like,
I was gonna say the thing that probably still shocks me the most that I didn't see coming in this entire show was Jackie's death, like how it
mhm.
happened. Just,
Yeah,
because we see the behind shot and she goes after him and all of a sudden we see the triangle of
Psst, psst,
daggers.
psst.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those are like probably my two moments. That duel specifically, Jackie versus Stranger, and then this moment was kind of cool.
So right after this moment is when Kymir he uses the force to get his lightsabers back and he runs at Soul. And during that part, we cut to May and Osha. And this is what I was talking about earlier when we were saying that there's some dialogue issues. And um, May was saying that Soul was trying to say something about how she started it, and then Osha was like, he didn't blame you, blah blah blah. But basically, what this boils down to is that they end up fighting each other. They don't agree on certain things because one believes this, the other one believes that. They're all mixed up, so they start fighting. And on our first watch, and I still kind of feel this way on the second watch. I feel like either they used a stunt double and they tried to digitize over the faces and it looked atrocious. Or they're just the stunt doubles and they didn't do enough of, making sure it looked right. Because there's a good couple times where I thought May was actually a man with a wig because I couldn't really tell based on the facial expressions.
Yeah, maybe. That's the difficulty, right? When you're having an actor play more than one character and you're gonna have them in scenes together, having them have a fight scene is like crazy to me. But they don't go too fancy with the moves. In fact, they're the same moves,
Right.
right? Like
Yep.
each person's using the same move at the same time.
I even
But
rewound it. I was like, wait a minute. Are they doing the same thing? Like
um
this arm's here, the right arm, and the next one, left arm out, right arm
but
back.
but yeah, like one of the actresses, I mean it's the same actress, but I know there's like stunt doubles in there, right? So one of them is giving like a real performance and you just feel like the other person is there. Like they are in the scene. They exist.
Yeah.
The first watch through for me, I really couldn't get past the stunt doubles. Like I didn't even pay attention to the fight hardly at all
Hmm.
because I was just like, it's so obvious this isn't her. I don't even know what I'm watching here. Like what's going on? There's even some scenes like where one character maybe they jump off of one another or something like that, like one gets pushed back. And it's even just like the landing that I feel like you could have probably just done another shot with the
You're talking
original.
about like the back move, right? Where they like go on the back and bounce like it's like a swing
When they're
over
doing the worm.
and they go back. Yeah, and it doesn't even look like it would have hit the punch.
Yeah.
And then when they're on their back, they like launch back up to their feet while a low sweep like tries to take out their legs, but the legs aren't there. They do like a really weird slow-mo in that fight. It's funny.
Well, and then like all of the fighting it's professional enough that it seems like they trained to do it, but then not enough that they were actually trying to hurt or pin or harm or even just stop the other person. Like, I get you don't want to hurt your sister if that's what you're trying to go
It
for.
doesn't look like a real fight,
Like,
is what you're
you're not,
saying.
it's like two kids just playing. Like,
Yeah,
nobody's even throwing
yeah.
punches.
No,
I
that's
think,
exactly how I feel about the fighting in this show a lot of the time. It just doesn't seem like the strikes are made with intention. Like, you're never going to get in a scenario where the two people, I don't care if they're the same person, are both going to go for like a high leg kick and they're going to cross like this just so you can cut to the scene behind Sarah. Like,
hey, don't you throw shade at that.
it
That
was
was
a
cool.
good cut, like it was cool, but like if the fighting move, it just makes zero sense to me. I don't know.
I
Like we
think
said before, don't think too hard about it, and it'll be cool, right?
Yeah,
I think
right.
it when you were describing, well, both of you were describing how it seems kind of like not enough intention or maybe even a little too staged. It kind of reminds me of that like first, I think it was the first episode, maybe the second one of Boba Fett when they were surrounded and they had all the shields and it really looked like it was my arm's gonna go here, your leg better go right here, you know? And it wasn't like sped up enough where it would seem more fluid or it just didn't work.
Yeah.
I appreciate what they were trying to do because after seeing it the first time, and Soul emphasizes this idea of you are each one of the same person. I thought that was kind of a cool callback because that would be like, well, if they're the same person, they're doing the same moves, right? But then that doesn't really connect if that's what they were going for. That doesn't really connect to stuff that happens later in the episode where now it's only going to be affecting one and not the other. But
Well, and it's like the whole point of the show that I thought they were trying to get at earlier was the environment that you raised in. Because
yeah,
one of the girls was raised with the Jedi, one of them presumably was raised by the Sith. Well, I mean, we don't know how long that Kymer and May were originally training, but that was where I thought they were going originally. And um, sorry, why did you, where was I going with this? How was I going to connect this? Because you were
They're
saying,
the same person, but they're not the same person.
oh, right. They shouldn't be the same. Like we've already seen that they have different skill sets.
right.
We
They're
we've
completely
seen
different.
that OSHA is good with the droids and the spaceships, and we've seen that May seems to be a much better fighter
Excuse me.
and can use
May
the
know
Force.
May knows how to reset a droid.
Yeah, she knows how to turn it on and off again. She sure does. So that I thought it was cool, like you're saying, Jeremy. But they are so different that they shouldn't be the same at this point.
Right. I would agree. It reminded me of my favorite part of The Last Jedi. Granted, it's not my favorite movie, but one of the coolest things,
It's in your top 9 Star Wars movies.
yeah, it's in my top nine Skywalker movies. Um, was that, when Rey was training on Ahch-To and she was doing all her lightsaber things, those are the exact moves that Kylo Ren does when he's trying to fight Luke later. And so that dyad connection, it pays off. But here, I was like, I don't think they were trying to pay homage to that, but at the same time, I don't even know if they're trying to do what I'm thinking they're trying to do. I think they were just doing something.
No, I think they had them use the same moves like very deliberately because it's like 3 in a row. It's like yeah, it's like a little arm. Their arms get locked up, they kind of spin, and then they go for the kick. So I think it's very deliberate. I think they did what you were talking about.
And then eventually, was it? Yeah, it's May that runs off and heads towards Sol and Kymir, and OSHA eventually takes off after her. And this
Before
is
they get there, though, before the girls show up, when Chimera and Soul are still fighting, we see the Jedi ship coming in for a landing,
oh
and
yeah, we
Chimera's
do.
got a pretty cool line here because he's my favorite. Soul, I think Soul insinuates that like now you're in trouble kind of a thing. I don't remember if he says something or what, but Chimera just goes, "They aren't here for me." I don't know. I just thought that was cool.
Yeah, they're
It's
here
little
for
things because they're
May,
few and
but
far
like,
between.
how does that help?
Oh, they're also here for Soul. Like
Yeah,
they went here because Soul's ship was here.
Well,
right.
also they told Soul to stay put and he didn't. So what are you doing, buddy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's
So
being
then May
fishy.
shows up.
Yep, May shows up. She does this weird like Chuck Norris roundhouse thing where um she's able to take the lightsaber from Soul and then this bothered me. I guess they were going somewhere with it, but she throws his lightsaber and the thing is like made of glass apparently because it hits the right angle to dislodge his kyber crystal. I thought that was a little bizarre, just because we've seen lightsabers chucked around time and time again and nothing's ever happened to them. Um,
hmm So, in a normal saber, is the crystal always exposed? Like, can you always see it?
I don't believe so.
Okay, that was kind of my impression that
What if you're looking down the barrel? Because I thought that's the camera angle we saw.
It is the camera angle that we saw, but not.
even
I
then I feel like there's something over it, right? Or
a
no?
lot of times there is. I don't think George Lucas made any of them that didn't have something over them. I could be wrong,
Or
but
maybe it's just like a hole.
I know for a fact that Obi-Wan's lightsabers and Luke's lightsabers had like a top to it.
Okay.
So it leads me to believe that the other ones did too.
It's got to
Even
be
Darth Maul did.
some kind of device to focus it or control the beam or something.
Yeah. But yeah, we
But
did get to see the exposed crystal on his.
yeah.
So maybe his is made out of a
Um,
cheap metal.
this is the only lightsaber in play right now, right? Because Soul did happen to do a nice little slice move, destroying
Chimeras.
Chimera's lightsaber.
Yep.
Yep.
Um,
And Austin, why does May not go for the kill? Why does she chuck the lightsaber?
oh, she's on the good side now. Can't you tell by her white outfit? Um, she wants Soul to pay for his crimes because she was there that night. She saw, well, I mean, she was half smoke monster, so I don't know what she saw, but presumably she saw her mother get stabbed by Soul. Um, so she knows the real truth of that night, and she wants Soul to admit it and pay for his crimes. But
Well,
really, I think her real motive, this is, I don't know if I was going to ask you about this maybe. I think she was just doing this just to get Soul to say it in front of OSHA. I think she knew she was there the whole time.
okay. This could be the dumbest thing ever. I just thought of it though. What I want to know your takes. So the whole point of this, like the beginning of this show, May is supposed to be killing these people without actually killing them, like with a weapon.
Yep.
What if this was just a game and she knew that OSHA would kill Soul? So like you said, she knew OSHA would be really upset. She deliberately had him say this in front of OSHA that would, piss her off. So, what if that could be a way for her to become an acolyte because she manipulated a way for him to be murdered?
I think that would make a lot more sense if she didn't suddenly take on OSHA's personality of being a goody two-shoes
That's why I was
because
wondering,
of
what if
the
it's a
way that this
facade?
episode ended. It's like Riva all over again, where like she had a storyline, it was gonna end on a good note, and then they changed it into something totally unexpected and ruined it. Like, if that's really what May was trying to do, and like, like, hey, Chimere, or stranger, whatever she calls him, like master, whatever it is, look what I just did. Like, I'm the one who, I knew she was there and explained all that and stuff. Like, that would have been pretty cool, I think. But no.
Yeah, to me it seemed like May has kind of given up on that path, um, for whatever reason.
Yeah, we'll never know.
Yeah, but but Osha, on the other hand, she is letting those negative emotions flow, baby.
Yeah,
Um,
turning blues to reds.
yeah, she this is the moment, right? She hears Soul admit the truth, and um, he tries to explain himself, but she's kind of overhearing it. Um, he's not saying the right words.
Did you
He
notice
just
that
keeps yapping.
in his explanation, when like one of the last things he says is that he did it because he loved her, or like because I love,
Yeah,
and then
that's the
you know
line
you can
that gets cut
insinuate that he's
off.
trying to say I loved you. How does that make any sense? Like, I raised you because I loved you, okay, but like I did all of those things, including killing your mom and stuff, because I loved you. But you knew her for less than 24 hours at that point, and she was just a little kid. Like, that's kind of weird. It's
I
really
mean,
creepy.
the past couple of weeks, people have been calling him a creep, but I don't think that's necessarily what he's going for. Like, I don't think Soul has some sort of uh marital uh
It doesn't
position.
it doesn't give me pedophile vibes, but what it does give me is like obsession, like you're my pet type vibes. Like, I'm gonna love you, I'm gonna take care of you, but I care about you a little too much. Like, it's a weird, extreme level of I care about you for no reason.
To me, it was more so like he's a Jedi Knight at the time, trying to do what he thinks is right in the world, and um, that happens to be usually protecting the weak and innocent, which a lot of times would be like children, and you know, they're the most innocent because they haven't grown up to be bad people yet. Um, so I think that was like his number one concern. Everything starts happening kind of fast. The witch turns into a smoke monster while also turning one of the kids into a smoke monster. He doesn't even know which kid it is because he just met them yesterday and they're twins. So he just panics in the moment, and he made the call. It was probably the wrong call, but um, you know,
He did what he thought was right.
right. That's the way I saw it. So then, what it started because he did have that passion to be a mentor. Um,
Yeah, because we even got some discussion from Indara, I believe, in that flashback where she was like, and that's why I'm a master and you're not, or whatever it was that she said. So,
mhm.
yeah, maybe he wants to be a master and he sees this one opportunity and, wants to take it by the horns.
Yeah,
I think what she said was that's why I have a Padawan and you don't.
Yeah, it was something snarky.
yeah, and that's like I think that's a natural progression for a lot of the Jedi is that they train other Jedi once they come of rank, and everything. So I think it's like a natural thing, but his pursuit of it was very like pedal to the floor, just full send. Um, yeah, and then he obviously developed an attachment to Osha throughout the training that we never saw. We didn't see the attachment either, but we're told it was there. We have to presume it was there.
So then it was. Uh,
Yeah.
she she had
Until
enough of
now.
what?
I said until now.
Yeah, and she was very Star Warsy telling him to shut up, at this point, and she had enough of it and she force choked him. Now, I will say a lot of people on social media are theorizing that this was the first forced choke. I I didn't get that vibe one bit. So I don't really know where people would even be thinking about that.
First on-screen force choke.
In chronological order, I suppose.
Right. That's
Well,
it. That's all I got.
It's like Vader's known
Ken-
for choking.
Right.
Kanye said to May before he revealed who he was, he kept saying like, "How are you gonna do it?" And like, he gave her the poison, going along with her trying to figure it out on her own. Do you think it's got to be one of these two things, right? One is he wanted her to figure out how do you kill a Jedi without a weapon, or two, it was he didn't know either that the answer was force choke.
I mean, that
Like
could be
either he
possible. I mean,
either he knew and was trying to make her figure it out on her own, or he didn't know either.
right. But I would also go on to say that, just because he doesn't know of it doesn't mean it was the first one.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Like, he hasn't done Force Lightning, but I'm pretty sure that's been around.
Right. Yeah, I kind of assume these abilities have been around. Um, yeah, it's usually the techniques will develop over time, so the stuff would become more common. Um, but
There's two things that happen here with OSHA. One of them I think is earned, and the other one I think is not. So she chokes him out. I think that one was earned. And the reason why I say that is because when we saw in Rise of Skywalker, Rey is trying to pull down the transport with Chewie in it, she just launches a force lightning and is not aware that she's doing it. And I feel like maybe that's kind of what's going on with OSHA. She doesn't really understand what she's doing, but because, it feels good in the moment and it's accomplishing what she wants by shutting him up. I think maybe it goes over the edge a little too much and she doesn't understand the power. But the one that I think doesn't make sense is the bleeding of the crystal.
yeah, my knowledge is not too deep on the bleeding of the crystal. I know it's like a dark side thing.
It is a thing,
Um,
from what I understand, that Disney created. So in their Marvel comics, they started exploring this idea that red lightsabers are kyber crystals that were bled from like deep, dark meditation and anger by dark side users. And when I was listening to Star Wars Theory talk about his stuff, he had mentioned that in one of the comics, it took like Vader 3 or 4 times to even get it to work. Because it takes so much time and effort to get it right to actually make that crystal bleed. And so when we think about Revenge of the Sith and we, put that side by side with this circumstance, I would say that Anakin had way more anger when he was fighting Obi-Wan. So if this would have been like a true thing to happen, it would have happened in that moment. But here, she's upset about one little thing in her life. Granted, yes, her mom and her whole coven was killed by her own sister. Um, I don't think she has enough to warrant what would happen with the crystal. I feel like she would need way more tapping into the dark side, understanding that whole meditation process to make that crystal bleed. I think what would have been better is if you've ever played the Force Unleashed games, there's a scene where Starkiller is putting his own lightsaber together, and we can see that red crystal, as part of the construction process. And I think it would have been better for down the line. Could she still take Soul's lightsaber? Because that's kind of a really powerful thing to take your mentor's lightsaber and bleed his crystal. That's, you know, pretty cool in my opinion. But I think it should have taken a little bit more of a process. I don't want to start throwing out this whole Mary Sue comment, but it's definitely a rushed process.
Well, what's weird for me too with this is because I'm in the same boat as Austin, where like I don't know a whole lot about what you just explained, prior to you explaining it, but they made an emphasis to show that the lightsaber was broken, and
Hmm.
then all of a sudden now it's not broken, and that doesn't really line up at all. Like
Right.
all they had to do was cut that scene of showing it be broken, and then you wouldn't have had this issue. But they purposefully showed that it was broken. It doesn't make sense.
Right.
Yeah,
I felt the same way.
they were just like throwing the Kyber crystal in our face, I think. Like they wanted to have the scene of it changing colors. Um,
Which it definitely looked cool. Like when she ignited it and it was, taking over the blue. I thought that was really cool.
mhm.
But in hindsight, don't make no sense.
Yeah, no, it's I heard someone else talking about this when they were talking about the Acolyte. Like all these moments, they are they have a lot of cool moments in this show, but they don't just happen. They like the bugs, right? It's like OSHA's like, "All right, Soul, it's bug time. Wink, wink, you know, turn off your lightsaber," right? Like there's so many cool things that could happen, but they're just like led up to too much. We're like we're
Kind
given
of
too
in your face.
much. Right. It's too in your face about it. Like expect your audience to be smart enough to, remember things that you've shown them, you know, if it was meaningful and done well the first time, like they'll remember.
I know whenever I talk about this show with my one of my friends at work, we both also watch House of the Dragon, and we're like, things are so much more, flushed out, that it makes more sense. I just feel like I wish the writing crew for this show would have taken a little extra time to develop it, and maybe get some more eyes on it. I know the people in charge have to sign off on it, but I feel like more attention to detail needed to be there.
Yeah, I'm going through a similar thing watching The Boys right now. Like if they drop something in there, it's not for no reason. It's going to be paid off that episode or in a future episode that season, probably.
Are those hour-long episodes?
Yeah.
See, another thing that we need.
Yep.
See, what I think, and maybe this is the same thing for the boys. I was talking to Sarah and I said, I think what it really hits hard about House of the Dragon is we get like a beginning, middle, and an end event, which all, you know, are pretty significant. But then also in between those moments, there's times where we're setting up things for the future episodes. So even though every episode shines on its own, it's also contributing to something down the line. Whereas here, when we get like 20 to 25-minute episodes, we have to just show what's special about this episode and that we can't,
Hmm.
develop those other things.
Yeah, it's so plot driven. There's no time for things to breathe or characters to react or relationships to build or change. It's just go, go, go. Like they're using Basil the whole time to track where they're going. Like it's so obnoxious.
Yeah,
And at
and
the
like
same time, Venestra can sense where they are. So can you sense them or do you need a tracker? Which is it?
I feel like she should have just been the leader there. Well,
To,
maybe
to that point, though, because I think I have an answer here. She could sense Chimere because she talks about, oh, he's alive, and
Hmm.
he can force tingle that she's doing this because then he
Yep.
puts on the
He
helmet so
puts the
she can't
helmet
read
on
him
so then she
anymore.
can't find him anymore.
So then she needs Basil. Yeah.
that's
That's why they
also
need
probably
Basil.
why she sent the people away. Like that's probably what you just said about Basil, but she wants them to go set up some sort of perimeter and look for people while she goes and, finds what because she, it clicks in her mind that he's still alive. So maybe like, when we talked about this whip lightsaber, and maybe that's how he got his scars, maybe that's something else that she's covered up.
Well,
Right.
she
That's
says
just trippy.
What's the
at,
history
at
there?
at the very end of the episode, she does say, "I need your help finding somebody who was a pupil of mine," which is just another piece to this puzzle, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Um,
I think that was what we'd kind of guessed based on the whip stuff, right? Based
yeah.
on like his scars on his back and the whip. Um,
But following the episode with where we're at right now, so that little force tingle happens as I was calling it. So he puts
yep.
on the helmet and he leaves. So May convinces OSHA of like, we need to get out of here. I know a way out. She takes her through the secret tunnel, which she said when she fell off the bridge, she got sucked into the tunnel, which is really kind of weird. I don't know what would be sucking her through the tunnel to make her land without getting harmed as just a little 8-year-old kid, but
Don't
I
think about it,
don't
Sarah. Don't
I
think
don't
about
really
that or the motion sensor lights in that tunnel.
so again, paying kind of homage to things of the past. When they walk through that tunnel, that's basically a reverse shot of when Luke is walking through the tunnel, going to find Vader right before Luke flies out the window. I don't know if you guys remember that scene, but it's like the very same type of corridor. And later on, when Luke falls in the pit, he gets sucked into the little trash thing where they're trying to spit out at the bottom of Cloud City. So when she said this, where she got sucked into it, and it happens to look just like the thing from Empire, I'm
Right.
wondering if that's where that connection is.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of little things like that in this show, but I didn't make that connection in the moment.
I know I'm a nerd. You say it.
Oh, it's fine. You're just more familiar with those movies. So like it clicks for you faster.
I watched that one enough to ruin it, like it broke. So, yeah. At that scene specifically with that tunnel, actually, too. Um,
so we get a
yeah,
little bonding moment between Osha and May of like, well, what'd you do after you got out of this tunnel? And she takes her to the tree where she always used to be able to find Osha, but of course she wasn't there, so boo-hoo, poor May.
Hmm. She sat there for 16 years.
It was kind of a little heartstring moment, except that, like I hated them already because of all their character things before. I don't know. If we actually cared about them, I think it would have been a powerful moment. It would have been really sad.
Hmm.
But yeah, uh, sorry, Austin, I talked right over your joke. I heard you and
No,
just
you're okay. It's
emotional
fine.
now.
I
Uh,
listened to it. I enjoyed it.
The joke was I want to know when Chimere started training May.
I think we'll
Like,
get that question when like OSHA's gonna question him in season 2.
yeah. I mean, I'm hoping they just don't make a season two, but if they do,
Right. I feel
ho
that
hopefully we get a couple answers.
yeah.
So
at
that's
this
the
We,
thing,
point,
right? This is supposed to be a mystery show. I mean, I don't know if we haven't covered the complete ending because Vernestra's up to no good throwing her partner's name onto the dirt. But um, how do you think they handled the mystery of the show? I mean,
which mystery?
the mystery, it's a mystery
Like,
show.
like, I mean,
well, wasn't the
they
original mystery who's killing all these Jedi? And we found that out after like 2 episodes.
we found
After
that out
one
after 10
scene, that was
minutes.
the opening scene, was it not?
Yeah,
It was May killing Adara. Was that not how we started the show?
it is exactly how we started the show.
Okay, great.
Glad
Solved the
we got that cleared
mystery.
up.
And then, yeah, no, it was funny.
Oh, we did get another cool Chimere quote, right?
Yeah.
Gotta take them where you can.
No,
This
he's cool.
this one was so they're hanging out by that tree and he's like, if I can find you, so can the Jedi. Like, come on, you guys, you're being stupid. Go hide somewhere. Let's go.
Right. Yeah, I mean, clearly they saw the ship fly overhead, so what are they dilly-dallying for? So, okay,
Well,
so was Mace gonna still go with the stranger at this point? Because
This whole
OSHA
thing,
makes a trade deal. She's like, I'll go with you if you let my sister go free. What's that about?
this whole thing makes no sense to me
yeah,
because
was he gonna
it,
kill her?
May says to Osha, "Well, what do you want, Osha?" And like I think that's supposed to be another one of those it's supposed to be another one of those powerful lines of like, I didn't let you do what you wanted when we were kids. I'm sorry. What do you want? I'm gonna go with it.
I'm sorry. It's the shot seems so out of place. So I mean, it's not super nerdy, but like how you film a lot of these things, they'll put the camera on the actress and then they'll say do the line, and then they'll shift to another part of the scene and they'll film that stuff. Like it's not all necessarily one flowing motion throughout the scene. So I felt like this definitely didn't feel like it fit. And I think that's part of the reason why, because it's not all filmed in one, fluid shot. Because it just seemed like she was, I'm sorry, it looked like she took like an edible or something, was a little bit high, and then she was just like, what do you want? And it's just like, that's not the tone, lady. We got people coming. They can hear the Jedi on their footsteps.
That was the double, Jeremy. They had to do over the face of that one.
Well,
Oh,
and that
my
was
bad.
May. That was May doing that stuff. And what does Osha pick? Not to be with her sister, who's this whole time just really wanted to be with Osha. No, man, Osha's like, well, I'll go train with you if you let her go free because there's no reason apparently why she can't just come with us.
Not to
Question
mention
mark. Like, why don't they just leave together?
not to
Yeah, that was my
mention
whole thing. Once Soul went down for the count, I thought like, okay, great. Now there's just these three together.
Maybe it's because there's only two seats on that ship, even though one of them can't pilot.
Oh, true, yeah. Not to mention what, Jeremy?
I was gonna say, not to mention, like, when they end up leaving May, they're leaving her in the state of mind of like an 8-year-old
Oh
because
yeah,
we
she
do
gets
the
mind
mind
wiped.
wipe. So it's like, thank God the Jedi were there because, like, what would she have? I guess
You
technically
know what?
May
She doesn't know how
survived.
to eat.
Oh,
She
she
Well,
would
did
have
maybe
had
survive
pilot.
to
one.
wait. She would have had to wait by that tree for another 16 years, Jeremy.
It's 16 years since I've seen someone.
Well, and like, okay, so she gets her mind wiped. Why is she not like, who's this person hugging me? And then
Right.
terrified of Skeletor behind her.
I'd have been like, who the heck are you? And what is this guy?
Right. Where are we? Yeah, there's a lot of ways she could have reacted in that moment.
I don't remember the exact line, but it has sounded like as if she still kind of knew who she was. Um, I don't remember what it was, but I was
OSHA
not
said as
convinced.
above are the stars, and then May was supposed to be below as the sea or something like that, but
Yeah, they
she,
couldn't do the rhyme. She forgot the rhyme.
yeah.
Right.
But
So
she still remembered a Brendock somehow, so she didn't lose all her memories, just the most recent ones.
All of them from the last 16 years.
Yes,
yeah,
approximately, give or
they
take.
basically retconned this whole show in May's mind, basically.
Yeah, can you do the same thing to me? Keimer, where are you?
My guy.
Oh my gosh.
Um,
Man,
So we're with Venestra now, okay? She interrogates May at Coruscant because the Jedi, they get May, they say she's under arrest, she's all confused and stuff, but then we flash forward to Venestra interrogating her at Coruscant. Why didn't she just interrogate her on the ship? Like what, you just put her in the brig on the ship until you got to Coruscant, and then she changed outfits too. So like, sorry, May, you gotta wait in the dungeon while I go change my outfit.
they treated her like a prisoner and strapped her to another table.
I mean, she did murder three. Well, one? She murdered one person, even if she
Yes.
forgot about it.
Because not Torben and not Kelnaka, but yes to Andara.
Yeah.
But I'm just like that.
Yeah.
Aren't
So,
you trying
Little
to figure out
clunky.
what stuff's going on? Like,
so
eh.
while they're talking, while Vernestra's talking to May, we also see a lot of these other like not flashback, but like other things that are playing out during this time that don't really get an explanation. We just kind of are like a fly on the wall to it all. So like we see that the Vernestra is explaining to these politicians that, Sol was the main person that did all this. It was a one person job, and I found him dead on Brendock because he basically committed suicide. And what I thought was interesting, and again, even though he was kind of one of my favorite parts of the episode, the senator or politician, whatever he was, when Vernestra is saying that a Jedi went basically AWOL and was murdering people, he looks over to the other politician there and they basically look at each other like, see, told you. We knew one of them was going to go off the wall. So I kind of wonder if that was Vernestra's like sly way of being like, okay, you were right, but now that you know that you were right about it, maybe you'll get off my back. Like, because they were anticipating someday that one of them was going to go, off the rails.
Yeah, they're definitely trying to send the Jedi on the path to the prequel trilogy, where there's not as many. They're very restricted by the Senate. It's definitely headed in that direction.
I do not like Vernestra.
Yeah.
She just is a two-timing scumbag.
She's as slimy as the skin tone on her skin. I don't know that.
Like
That sounds
Jabba's
weird.
Jabba's little booger
She's
thing.
yeah, like Nickelodeon slime, you know? She's just
Okay.
two-timing slimy.
I thought you were trying to make fun of her bald cap because in one of the previous episodes they did not do the bald cap line justice. Like it just looked atrocious.
A hodo.
I didn't know if you saw something else this episode or what you were talking about.
No, no, I was just talking about how she's green.
Gotcha.
That's all. It was just a green joke.
So there's
Um,
only a couple things left here. One of the things that I, again, kind of like the over-explaining, but because they over-explained, I raised an eyebrow when Vernestra is explaining to May, like, you were 8 years old when this thing happened. What's the last thing you remember? And she's like, fire. And then Vernestra says, does OSHA mean anything to you? And then, so I feel like we're all, there's no way that she doesn't know about her sister. Because if they mind wiped her up until that event, she definitely had a childhood with her sister before then. So I don't think
yeah,
it's kind of like
it's
Spider-Man where everybody doesn't know, about Peter Parker or whatever that was.
well, it kind of is because I don't think it's like a timeline thing. Like I don't think he took the memories all the way back 16 years. I think he just took like a portion of the memories and just like wiped them, you know?
It
So
it was
she
supposed to be anything that involved OSHA or Chimere. So I guess if he was with her on that day, like if he found her that day and they've been together ever since, then that's why she doesn't remember anything after that.
Yeah, well, she remembers that she was going to go tell somebody something, like her sister, about her mom, basically. But she can't remember that it's OSHA that she needs to tell. So it's weird. The memory is just weird.
Interesting. I didn't think about that interpretation. I just thought it was really odd that that was the point in time that was picked.
Right. Yeah, that's the last thing that she remembers.
Yeah, because like what's the last thing that you remember? Oh, well, I saw this dude like die. I don't remember how he died, but it seemed like he was gasping for air and he just died. But I don't know how because she wouldn't remember who her sister was. See, that's what I would interpret that, like not knowing who she was. But because they went so far back, it made me wonder, what is this mind wipe really accomplishing? But
Right.
we're thinking too hard. We're thinking too.
Well, I mean, and that's something where they can just kind of write it any way they want it to be, you know? They can have her remember exactly what she needs to remember or forget exactly what she needs to forget. It just, it's one of those like plot devices I find a bit lazy, but it can be done right, it can be done well, but Um, Memory wiping is a bit weird. We
Yeah.
might see what they do with it in season two. I mean, it seems like Vernestra is going to be corrupting May quite a bit. If sh Maybe she's just using her for information, but
So, have you seen Game of Thrones, Austin?
mm-mm.
So, well, I'm sorry if you don't know what I'm
It's
referencing,
fine.
but
Go for it.
Sarah, I kind of wonder, like, do you think May would almost become like a Reek character? Do you remember when, so like Reek was basically coming into power and then all of a sudden he just loses all of it and he ends
Yeah,
up being
but
kind of a mid character the rest of the way?
his was more from like a tortured standpoint.
Right. But I'm what I'm saying is like just the mindset. She seems to be uh
Oh, she's regressed to basically the mindset of an 8-year-old.
right.
To me, it almost kind of sounded like her voice was the Little May voice, but I just checked IMDb and Little May is not credited for this episode, like not even as a voice or anything. So that might have just been in my head.
Could have been.
Well, we get a final scene with Chimera and Osha, where she's staring off in the sunset. And Jeremy, I remember when we were watching this, you asked me what are they looking at? But yeah, so he goes and holds her hand. They're staring off at the sunset, which because we're so critical of this show, it makes you wonder like what are they doing just staring at the sunset? But you also have to remember a lot of other Star Wars movies end like that, like with Luke staring at the sun or with Rey staring at the sun as the sun's setting. Like that's not an uncommon last scene. It's just the hand holding that makes it so weird.
Yeah, that was like he comes over and then holds his hand over the one shared lightsaber that was Soul's that they still have, and that's how we go out. It was like,
Well,
what?
there was one
Are
scene after
are
that.
you?
Yep.
Oh, you're right. There's more after that.
That's
Like
how we go out with
I just
Osha
wanted
and
it to
Target.
end. Like they just kept letting me down one scene at a time. But you're right. There is one more.
I'm sure the last scene didn't help either. Vernestra opens the door and she goes to talk to Master Yoda about all this stuff that's been happening,
She
which
finally
is,
got in. She scheduled an appointment 2 weeks ago. She finally got in to see him.
yeah, kind of like doctor's appointment. You got to schedule it 2 months in advance, even if you're sick today.
Yep. So do you guys think? Yeah. So sorry to cut you off, but yes, she finds Master Yoda finally. Uh, and then do you think she tells him the whole story, or do you think she gives him her side of the story?
I don't even know what story she ends up telling him. Like, does she tell him about maybe this Chimere thing that we're all speculating about? Does she only tell him about the soul thing that's going on? Um, is there more to either one of those? I have no idea. But
Hmm.
I find it hard to believe that Yoda wouldn't already know, or at least have some sort of intuition about things that have been happening. We see it on screen plenty of times where Yoda has like a mid-heart attack when something bad happens across the galaxy. Like when Order 66 happens, he grabs his chest and he's feeling it. Why in the world wasn't he feeling all this other stuff?
Cortosis.
Yes, cortosis.
That's
That's
all I
the
got. I don't know.
They made his office out of cortosis, and he can't project any. I don't know.
It's in the walls of that cave
Yeah,
that the Plagueis is hiding in.
The little creepy crawly dude.
yeah.
But yeah, that is just something else.
One of the things I did, so somebody on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, had put out saying like, if there was a season two, what would you do to make it better? And one of the things I put on there is like, I don't want to follow the same storyline, but what I think would be cool is an anthology series where we're focusing on different moments of the High Republic. And so, like, I feel like it would be kind of cool to just kind of ignore what's going on here and either like focus on Plagueis or focus on like kind of like how I was saying with the Kenobi show. The first season we focus on Kenobi, maybe the second season we focus on the other side of the coin with Vader. Here we focused on these characters. Well, we got that little thing with Plagueis. Maybe we shift the course and now we learn more about Plagueis and what he's up to. Um, he's not going to be showing himself, of course, to the Jedi, but
I need a Chimera show. Well, need is a strong term, but if we're gonna have to have another show, that's what I would have it be about.
I
And
like
there's a lot to talk about there, right? Because there's his upbringing with Vernestra and then all his training with May. Like that's a long time span.
I could I like Chimere when he has the helmet on. I think he's just way more cool and menacing, the voice, all that good stuff. I think it's way better with the mask.
It does give him some
Oh,
confidence.
we forgot to ask Austin his opinion on one of the things in the fight. So when he's fighting Soul, and we're probably gonna have to wrap this up at some point. This is literally the longest video we've ever had with a discussion. We're over an hour and a half, people. Um, so there's a part where Soul and Chimere, they're fighting, and Chimere puts his sword behind
Hmm.
Soul's, and he's trying to pull the lightsaber so that Soul's saber would hit the cortosis and, deactivate. But think about it. If you're on the other side of me, what's stopping me from doing this and smacking you right in the face with the lightsaber? You know what I'm saying?
Right, like if he's made it through the defenses enough to be pulling his saber down.
So this is Chimere's lightsaber. This is Soul. Chimere is pulling it towards his helmet.
Yeah.
Instead, why doesn't he just cut through Soul?
Well, why wouldn't Soul just cut his arm off then?
Right. That's what I was thinking the whole time. Soul could
Yeah,
just
he
as
could.
easily turn his lightsaber a quarter turn, and then he's not hitting the helmet anymore. Now he's chopping through his torso or his arm, you know?
Yeah.
So like it's just there's a reason we've never seen that before. I don't know. I thought you were going to ask me about the air kick, Soul doing the triple
Oh,
triple air kick.
that was kind of weird, but
It
yeah.
was out of place. I don't know. I would have rather seen somebody do like a cool force kick where they like jump through the air, kick somebody, and then they go flying. Like make the Wookiee do that or something. I don't know.
Well, if he was still around.
Right. If he wasn't a Halloween decoration.
Yeah, from the Home Depot.
Man, we got baited so hard by this show. I just can't get over it. Like the Wookiee Jedi, the lightsaber whip. Like
Well, that leads me right into the last part here. What do we think of the show as a whole? Our final thoughts.
they tried some things. I admire the things that they tried. I think they had some cool ideas. The execution, I did not love.
That's kind of where I'm at too. Like there was definitely some potential here. I think they could have done some cool things with the twin dynamic that just weren't there. I feel like some of the writing definitely wasn't there, like dialogue and whatnot. I
Hmm.
mean, Star Wars has had some weird dialogue in the past. I mean, that's one of the things that I think the prequels are pretty known for. But this was a whole other level, in my opinion. Um,
I feel like a lot of it was, wouldn't it be cool if we did this? And then they just manipulated a way to have it happen without really thinking about it too hard.
which would create a lot of that indecisiveness of like the flip-flopping of I want to be this, I want to be that.
Hmm. And I wanted these characters to have more than just like they're more than just, oh, one's the evil twin, one's the good twin. Like give me some more complicated character motivations and stuff. Like what are they like, you know? Like what do they want? Um we didn't get a chance to really connect with the main characters. Like they have this great tragedy happen to them, and we're supposed to just like feel bad about it, but we don't even really know what happened the whole time because they don't tell us. So we're like trying to figure out how badly they've been wronged, so we don't even know how badly we should feel about it the whole time. I don't know if that's how you guys felt going through it, but
Yeah, but then once we get and we find out what happened, we're like, why did you
that's
feel
it.
bad?
Right, that's it.
Corbin didn't even do anything bad. I mean, yeah, he's the one that kind of put it in motion, but he didn't kill nobody.
Right. It's just odd, you know.
You just wanted to go
The
home.
Yeah, he just wanted to go home. He should have clicked them heels.
the way they connected all the dots, you know, it just wasn't didn't hit for me. Um, so if they do green light a season two for some reason, hopefully they can get a little more cohesive story going. That's what I would really like to see.
Do their homework and proofread it.
Right. And they are getting close to they're pretty close, relatively speaking, to the rest of the Star Wars timeline that we know of. So they really do have to be very careful with
Hmm.
what they set up and what they leave, what threads they leave open and everything like that. Um, so that does make me nervous. Yes, the threads, exactly.
All they got to do is change some birth dates and it's fine.
Right now we got four open threads, really. Well, we know what happens to Plagueis, so I won't count that one. But three open threads, right? Osha May, Stranger. So like those three all seemingly need to disappear by the time 80, 70 years or so. So
I think Plagueis murders Chimere and Osha.
yeah, shouldn't he be pissed? He should, right?
I think Chimere's gonna try to overthrow him, and Plagueis is gonna have none of it.
Hmm.
Sarah, did you have any final thoughts?
I kind of already gave them of boy, wouldn't this be cool? And then we'll just figure it out later how it goes together, except it doesn't really go together.
All right. Well, I think that's probably a good spot. Unless Austin, did you have something else too?
Not really. Pretty much said everything I had to say, I think. Trying to think if there's any like bright stars I could see. Oh, there was one more thing. And it kind of goes, I just keep harping on the same things, but they build stuff up and then they don't pay it off. Like the Pip droid switching, forgetting all its memories that it knew OSHA, and now it's like May's little Pip droid. That was like her one friend that they gave us in the show. That was like the only, it's a droid, not a person, but the only person she had a connection to in the whole show gets reset, and you're not even going to give us that like reunion of like, they turned it into a joke where it, like squirts water in her eye or something. I was like,
Well, because it
really?
originally squirted oil in May's eye, and now it
Hmm.
squirted something in Osha's eye.
Yeah. So that
You
was
tell the
all. I
difference.
just I just wish she would have had like a felt some loss from losing the droid, you know?
Well, she did say like Pip, like she was excited for him to help her, and then it blasted her in the eye.
She's too
Yeah.
far down that dark path.
Yep. That's all I got. Evil droid.
All right. Well, on that note, we're gonna wrap it up. Like I said, it's probably our longest video ever, but I mean, it's good stuff. I mean, we have to uh, pick it apart, talk about, the things that we're presented with, and then how can we sleep at night after witnessing them. So, if you enjoy this type of video, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. We will have, future Star Wars shows coming out. I believe the next one is Skeleton Crew, unless they what's the term? Shadow drop? Is that when or stealth drop? They
I
just
think so.
drop something randomly.
Oh, yeah.
If we happen to get something like that, of course we'll cover it. I think Visions has had that in the past where they just tell us like the month of, and it's like, oh my God, there it is. But
We had that was Tales of the Empire too.
yeah, that was pretty quick too. So For more discussions on Star Wars shows, make sure to check back here. Drop us a like if you like the video and drop us a comment letting us know your thoughts on the season finale of The Acolyte and your thoughts on the show altogether. And then, as always, everybody, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.
Bye.